Fish Lake Valley. We're going to go south today. I've never videotaped the area where we're going to go. We're going to go over Gilbert and Westgard Pass and through Deep Springs Valley. We're going by the Cord Ranch now. Those tall trees you see there, they were fence posts when they were planted. They were fresh poplar posts, and they put them in the ground and they grew. They're probably about 150 years old now, something around there. The Cord Ranch was where I worked in 1960 and 61. Training horses for Mr. Cord, the guy that invented the Cord, the Duesenberg, and the Auburn cars. They grow a lot of hay here. White Mountain is up there to the right. It's snowing on White Mountain right now, and this is June the 6th. It snowed here in the valley yesterday. It did not stick. It wasn't even really that cold. In the 50s, I think. And there was big slushy snowflakes hitting the windshield yesterday. Going by the Dyer School here, where I went to school when I was young. It was a two-room schoolhouse from the 1st to the 5th and from the 6th to the 9th grade. There's the community center to the right, where we had the Republican fundraising a couple of Saturdays ago. My brother did his last concert, he said. Going by the old Conley Ranch pretty soon. Before that it was a Patterson Ranch. There is a Frank Lloyd Wright home there. His Craftsman home, I think it was. Patterson Creek. They've changed the name of it to Mary Aiken Creek now. I don't know why, but they did. They changed a lot of names around here the last 40 or 50 years. This is a hay-growing paradise up here. But they're growing a lot of potatoes here and carrots now also. There's the Patterson house over there to the left, big mansion. Coming up to the old store and bar. Here, this is the store and the bar. The bar was on the right-hand side, and the restaurant, and the left-hand side was the store. And on the big long bar, there was a machine gun with bullets in it. Strip of bullets in there. We're coming up to the community of the Dyer Post Office and the Esmeralda Market and the Boonies Cafe. I used to live down there on the right-hand side. Like a couple of trees have come back to life with all the water we've had this year on my old place there. Nothing's been watered there in 20, 30 years. I had 50 fruit trees and 350 windbreaks around there, and there aren't many left now. fellow here on the right is a horse trainer. On to the big community now. There's the post office. I used to live behind the post office. The road at that time was called Phillips Road, named after me. They named it Central Valley Road, but now they changed the name of it. Esmeralda Market and the RV park here. They got a few little cabins there for rent. And here's the museum. Going by that. Fish Lake Valley Saloon. Used to be Tom and Lou Dean's Market at one time. We're in the center of the valley now. They're already harvesting the hay. Got the alfalfa, and some of it has oat hay and whatever else mixed in with it. We're coming up to the old Bar 99 ranch. Until Jim Boyce bought this ranch, it was a beautiful show place with a nice, several nice homes on it, actually. Big bunkhouse and everything. The next little ranch we're going to come up to is the Double D Ranch. There's the Double D Ranch. Baled hay here. I think Ralph Keyes is farming all of this. He's also our county commissioner. We're coming up to the dump. It's a dump and a breaking yard and appliance let off and oil recycling area and everything all combined into one. We're going to come up to another little community here now. This is Wright Road. Lyda Bell and William Wright, her husband, came here and homesteaded. They were water well drillers. And then their son, Bill Wright, which I knew him also. Lyda Bell was the post office master here. Coming up to that, there's a really nice hardware store here. Just got everything in it. And this is a community off of Wright Road out here. White Mountain Estates and White Wolf Estates, and I can't remember all. Down through here. Quite a bit of a community here. A lot of very old homes here. Some of them were built out of railroad ties and gun boxes, rifle boxes. They filled them with rifle boxes with sawdust, nailed them one on top of another. There's store. This community runs on down here. Williams family up there by the Esmeralda Market. The Wright family and the Wallaces are down here. Kids there, the Wallaces and the Wrights and the Williams, the Lemons. Open range here for cattle, wild horses, bighorn sheep, antelope, burros, mule deer, and elk. And a few Bigfoot. The other end of the valley that I know about anyway. All the way out to the end of the valley. The south end of the valley is where I first lived when I came up here in the 1950s. And it's in California. We're about to go into California now. The south end of the valley is in California. Alfalfa being grown here. A family out of Arvin, California came up here in the 1940s and 30s, and they had a big cotton ranch, or not cotton, but a big potato ranch up here in Oasis, California. Oasis, California was actually a town back then. When I lived here, there was a post office and a school and everything there. They closed the school down in 1957 or 58 was the last year that it was run, and all the students had to be bused up to the Dyer School. Looks like we've had a little flash flooding down here. I hope the Deep Springs Valley doesn't have too much flash flooding. It's had some down there. Anyway, the largest potato seller I ever saw in my life was there on the Oasis Ranch. underground. And they drove horses and wagons in there and put the potatoes down there because it was cool. It only got 80, 85 degrees in the summer here at that time. It's pretty cold in winter. But they grew really good potatoes here, and they still do. Tasteful Selection Company has at least 3,000 or 4,000 acres under cultivation here growing the little potatoes. California pretty soon. That's where all the trees are down there. That's a pretty old community there. As a matter of fact, the Oasis, the Leidy family owned that at one time, and the song, The Strawberry Roan, was written over a Strawberry Roan Mustang that was on that ranch that nobody could ride. Oh, that Strawberry Roan. His legs were all spavined, he had pigeon toes. Little pin ears that touch at the tip. The big 44 brand was on his left hip. U-neck and all with a long lower jaw. I could tell with one eye he was a regular outlaw. That's a little bit of that song. Not sung, but spoken. There were a lot of Western artists up here in the early days. This was the Wild West. Gun fights and shootouts and things took place up here. In the Fish Lake Valley Cemetery up there, there's Asa Wilds that killed 6 men that attacked him in a gunfight there. They're all buried together closely in the old rock fence graves. And that happened in 1870 something. Up here on Gilbert Pass and Deep Springs Valley and Westgard Passes where quite a battle took place in the 1870s. The soldiers were coming through here and shooting all the antelope for sport, I guess for target practice. And the Indians were very upset. The Shoshone in here, the Shoshone went down here, and then when you started on over Gilbert Pass, that's where the Paiute were. And some of them were married, intermarried a little bit. Anyway, there's a chief over there called Harry. And Harry warned the patrols out here that were coming through here, like 200 and something men. They were shooting all the antelope, and the antelope with their feet. The antelope and big orange sheep. And they were just shooting them indiscriminately for no purpose at all, except to see them die. Well, they warned them that if they didn't quit doing that, that they were going to start shooting them. And we're right here at Oasis, California. By the way, the right over there to the right is the Kennedy family. The Kennedy family are the ones that lived for a while down there at Lower McNett, and a Bigfoot came there and took their goats. And they took off and left, and they never came back. That's down by the hot well where I saw the Bigfoot. I had a Bigfoot sighting, very plain, and a Bigfoot experience there also, where it threw a 55-gallon barrel through the air for about 75 yards. I didn't see it, but I saw what it did. I didn't stay there very long. That was enough for me. I left the school just past this intersection where I'm going to turn right. They moved it off on the ranch there someplace. The little town was there, the store was there, blacksmith shop, Wells Fargo, or not Wells Fargo, but the Butterfield stage stops. Now we're going to turn and go toward Big Pine. Now right out straight across there is where I used to live, on the Snow Goose Ranch. There were a lot of snow geese back then, because there's a lake here on right there to the right, and there's a lake on the Oasis Ranch. Here at Deep Springs, 11 miles, Westgard Pass 24, Big Pine. Right up there to the right is Cottonwood Creek. There's some real valuable gold mines up there. The family that built the Snow Goose Ranch where I lived were gold miners. One of them got married, and they built him a really nice rock house down there. And I lived in that house. That was actually the first real house that I ever lived in. It had a bathroom in it and a shower. We had a windmill and a tank with a tower on top of a tower there. We didn't have to have any electricity because we didn't have any. We had a phone there, Oasis #1, one long and two shorts. It was a ringer phone. The only phone in Fish Lake Valley. Had a chicken ranch down there that Murphy's owned. And the big barn is still there. There's a gravel pit here where they get gravel. And up this creek, there's my mailbox where I used to walk all the way from that ranch up here to get a mail. And that road there goes up Cottonwood Creek, way back up in there. You could drive all the way to the top of White Mountain when I was young. Now, getting back to Harry. The soldiers came through here. And they kept on shooting the antelope. And so they decided to decimate the soldiers and take their guns. And teach them a lesson. They figured if they did that, they'd leave them alone. And just come through here quietly, and they wouldn't disturb them, and they wouldn't disturb them. But they wanted them to leave the wildlife alone except for what they needed to eat. The Indian never got excited if a man wanted to kill something to eat. You know, eating is necessary. Going up Gilbert Pass. Up here on Gilbert Pass, where we got some tall mountains looking down on the road. This was just a trail back then, you know. When I was young, this was a gravel road. And it was a gravel road back then. Graded with Fresnos and things that pulled by animals. Westgard Pass was a toll road. Later. And there was a big spring up there. And down here, when we go down into Deep Springs Valley, there's a creek, Crooked Creek and Wyman Creek run together there, and there's a pretty good bunch of water. You could travel all the way up this Cottonwood Creek all the way to the top. Anyway, up here, not too far from where we are right now, Harry attacked the soldiers and killed a lot of them and wounded a lot of them. They didn't listen to him. And so they gathered together what wasn't dead and left. They left their dead because they couldn't take them. They were afraid. They were being attacked by a superior force from a position that was greatly advantageous to the Indians. And we're in that area right now. This is where they were being attacked. Not without reason. They were hiding up here in these hills and shooting down, raining down arrows and bullets upon these Indians. I mean these soldiers. There were about 224 of them, I think. I think all that got out alive in the long run were about 9. And they went down to Fort Independence. And then this began a war the United States government against the Paiutes. All the Paiutes wanted to do was to reserve their food source instead of watching it being shot laying on the ground out there. This is Gilbert Pass. Now this road to the right up here, it's the dirt road that goes down into Cottonwood Creek area. They run cattle in here. Bill Wright used to run cattle all the way up and down Cottonwood Creek, all the way up to the top of the mountain. Helped him a few times, and I saw him up there quite a few times also. I also run his cattle down by Lower McNett. Almost all the ranchers up here used to have pasture in the high country. They would drive their cattle up there in the summertime. There was a lot of grass and food up there for them, forage. We're going through these hills here. Now just about that direction right there is Saline Valley and Eureka Valley and Death Valley. Eureka sand dunes and all of that. My dog chased our Brahma bulls down there one time, and we had to go get them. We sicked Yukon on them, and Yukon didn't stop. He just kept on driving. We told him to get them out of there, and he got them out of there for about 15 miles. We didn't tell him to stop, so we just kept on driving them. Elevation 6,373 feet. That road there going that way is going to Death Valley, and also now we're looking down now on the Sierras. We're looking over the Inyo Mountains and looking over to the Sierras. Now when the war battle was over, they had to drive and ride all of this way with wagons and whatever they had, this troop of 224 people when it started. Now they're going to come down here with their wounded. All the way down here they're going to ride and try to get away from the Paiutes, Harry Harris group. We met a car looking down in there now. That is Fish Lake Valley down there. I don't want to stop here too long. Looking down between us and the Sierra Mountains over there, you can see the snowpack on the Sierras is tremendous. Almost historic. That's beautiful. Another car. What do you know about that? This road was very eroded at times through these storms. A lot of rocks have come crashing down. Well, those soldiers, what was left, were crippling down this mountain. Going to Chattovich, and not Chattovich, but Wyman and Crooked Creek, where it went together. There was a city down there called White Mountain City. There was a little community there, and cabins, and a smelter later on where they were smelting silver and gold. There was plenty of wood for fire, energy, and plenty of water for a stamp mill also that crushed the rock. I'll show you where that was here in a little while. A lot of wildflowers are out this year. We've had so many snowstorms and rainstorms. We had a pretty good rainstorm yesterday. Hopefully it didn't wash the road out over here. There's quite a few Indians lived here in Deep Springs Valley. If you look over there, you'll see the Deep Springs College, an extension out of Cornell University. A guy by the name of Nunn came in here and he was the engineer, and he started the school for engineers, and he trained his young engineers, and they were going to run electricity over there at the gold field. And they did that for the mining area over there, Goldfield and Tonopah. Goldfield was the county seat of Esmeralda County. That was the largest county in Nevada at one time. As we're going here, you're getting a little history lesson. Anyway, this school is still going. I used to teach at that school in the 1970s and 80s. I did not teach the liberal arts, but I taught mechanics. I worked for Ace Hydraulic, and I come over here once every 2 weeks or once a month, and I do visit all of my customers all the way up 395 and Union Carbide and Candelaria, Deep Springs here, and take them whatever they needed. And I would show some of my customers how to work on some of the equipment. And here are the boys at this Cornell University extension. They had to not only learn their studies, book learning, but they had to learn how to farm, and they had to learn how to do some mechanical work, and they had to learn how to ranch with the horses and the cattle. They had to learn how to butcher, had to milk cows. They had to cook and clean. That was almost washed off here, this edge of that mountain. Pretty deep drop there too. I'm going to go down to a pretty steep area here. Now remember, as I'm telling you, all these soldiers are on their way down here. They're trying to get over here. They're sick, they're wounded, they're bleeding, and everything, because all of this happened because they did not respect the Indians' wishes to leave their animals alone, except for what they wanted to eat. Pretty steep incline here. Wildflowers as we go. Now they were getting over here, and they're coming up to this White Mountain City. And they're going to go over there, and they're going to doctor their people. I'll show you where White Mountain City, there's a road going right to White Mountain City. There's 2 or 3 roads going there. Trails back up in there. One of them we went by already. Over to the left over there is the Deep Springs College, extension of Cornell University. And to the right, just almost straight ahead, is the old road maintenance station. There's the road that goes up there to White Mountain City. Just past it. They went up there. they doctored up their people for a few days and got back on the road again, started going down this road. Now you can see them going here. There are a lot of wounded, and the horses were wounded. A lot of problems. In the movies, you never see them shoot a horse too often, except maybe some in Sam Peckinpah's movie, more realistic. Now over here to the left, when I went back there in the 70s and 80s, it was still pretty primitive. They had their own electricity. They had a great big mess hall there, and they'd ring this big bell for at lunchtime, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And some of the students that were on kitchen duty and cooking duty. There's the old road maintenance station there, and right underneath here is Shadovich. Not Shadovich, but Lyman and Crooked Creek. A lot of water. And it goes over into a big pond over there. Back to the ranch, to the college. I'd go in there and I'd teach the boys how to take cylinders apart, how to repair hydraulic jacks, how to repair the pumps and motors on the wheel lines, and any type of mechanical thing. I'd show them how to do anything hydraulic. And some of them were really, really just aggressively interested in doing it. And others were so proud and pious that I was an idiot compared to them. They had to have 140 IQ to enter the school. And so the elite, from the presidents, the vice presidents, the senators and representatives, their children went here a lot of times. And some of these people that have graduated from the school, Big Pine, 27 miles, 14 miles to Westgard Pass. You can still see the Sierras over the lower Inyo Mountains. Beautiful up there. I've never videotaped this road here, this trip at all. I don't take it very often. We're going down through the valley here. Now remember, those soldiers are here, and then right here, one time, back in the 1980s, I believe, some gangsters tried to hijack me. And I was going here, and they went around me, one car in, one car behind me, and they were sandwiching me and trying to run me off the road. Well, I reached down, I had a Colt Python for 57 Magnum right on my seat. I fired a couple of shots forward, fired a couple of shots backwards, and I had no more trouble. They just got off the road, and I went by, and I had no more trouble. That was the end of that confrontation. And I'm glad that's all that happened. I was aiming to shoot those cars, and I probably did. But they decided that I was too much of a problem to steal my car. So they left me alone. Remember, the soldiers are coming through here all this way, walking like 10 miles, 12 miles a day or something like that. If they were in a hurry, they can go 20. I've done 20, 25, 30 miles a day on horse and on foot. But Harry's band went around and got ahead of them down here. Now they were going to impress them to leave their animals alone. Now down here to the left is a big pond. It's kind of a salt pond out there, a marsh. And the bighorn sheep come down out of these mountains in the water and graze there. And they were shooting them too. That's nothing more majestic than a bighorn sheep. They're just fantastic, amazing. They look like they've got glue to their feet. And they just climb up the sheer cliff. Now there's water in that lake over there now. And there's a marsh around there. The cowboys used to have to come over here, the cattle to get out there and eat some of that green grass. They get stuck in the bogs. Now it looks like we got flooded areas here. A lot of water coming down out of these mountains. The White Mountains are over there to the right. We've had some flooding. And over the road here, not too long ago, this was about 2 foot of dirt. It looks like they've cleaned that off a little bit. The last time I was here, there was water running across the road. Now the soldiers are coming along here, going at their paces. And there's some real deep canyons up here. Harry's tribe had got up there all along those passes and were raining arrows down onto those soldiers. Just raining arrows and shooting 45-70 rifles that they had captured from the other place there. There was a lot of Springfield 73s, 45-70 trapdoors, single-shot rifles. 45-70 can shoot a long way. They're kind of like a rainbow trajectory, but they can do it. Probably 500 grain bullets, 70 grains of black powder. And every time they fired one, they killed somebody or something. Some traffic up here. This was all washed out in here not very long ago. Here in the last winter, there was like 6 or 8 foot of snow here. One man, he's 81 years old, I believe it was, came through here and he got stuck for 6 days. But he was melting snow and eating and drinking it, and he had a bunch of croissants, rolls, in his car. And so he maintained until somebody saw him from a aircraft and sent help over here to get him out. I imagine they had to take him out in a snowmobile because you couldn't get through here for weeks and weeks. There goes a truck out of Bakersfield, going to haul hay down there to the dairies. Beginning to go up. Whoop-de-doos up here, sharp turns. They still run cattle here from Deep Springs College. Teaching those boys how to brand cattle and mark them and castrate and doctor. There's a lot of exciting archaeological and geological finds in this country. It's just amazing. And our study groups are up here almost constantly, studying something or digging up something or whatever. And right in here they do a lot of that because there's some pretty ancient Indian ruins up here, and the geology of this country is alive with geology, volcanic activity, etc. Remember, the soldiers are traveling where we were a lot slower than we are. Probably took them a few days to get from Gilbert Pass to Westgard. As you can see over there to the left, there's a bunch of students or scientists over there, a whole herd of them, studying this area. You would never run out of exploration here. You could be exploring something for all of your life. Now we're going into some pretty deep canyons. This country has been a part of my life, nearly all of my life. I was probably 7, 8 years old when I came here. People used to build fireplaces and rock walls and things out of this volcanic shale here. And also, you can find good pieces of it that make real good sharpening stones. People would come up here in their pickups and wagons before that and pick up this rock and build sidewalks and all kinds of stuff out of it. Now, Harry was acting like Dirty Harry, you know, Callahan. He was up on these cliffs, and as these soldiers would go through here, he was picking them off. 1 here, 1 there, 5 here. He kept on attacking them from the high places. A lot of volcanic shale in here. The oldest trees in the world are up here, the bristlecone pines. The ancient groves of bristlecone pines. Now, where we went there, and I showed you where White Mountain City was, you go way back up in there, and then you're on the eastern side of the bristlecone pine forest. And then you go up here to the road at the top of the mountain on Westgard Pass, and you go back up in there to the right, and you go into the western side of the ancient bristlecone pine forest. Those trees date back thousands and thousands of years. One time, before they knew what was going on, when I lived here in 1958, they discovered those trees. Schuleman, a man by the name of Schuleman, discovered them. It's called Schuleman's Grove up there. And he found out that were the oldest living things in the world. He cut one down and started dissecting it and found out that that tree was alive and it was over 6,000 years old. It was just amazing. Then he became very careful and he started core drilling, taking core samples out of them and counting the rings. They reset what they call carbon dating by these trees up here. It's different geological events in history, like Mount Vesuvius blowing up, was recorded here. And they knew exactly the date when it blew up and erupted. They never had the date before these trees. These trees were here before the earth was divided, when it was Pangea. They're up around 12,000 feet. Now just keep on remembering, now all along here, soldiers are being picked off by Harry's tribe. People are always wanting to pass me because I go too slow. I guess I am pulling a trailer. It's empty. It won't be when I come back with it. Anyway, they started doing research on these old trees. And then they put an information center up there and a scientific center. And I went up there, and on the website is a video entitled "A Trip to the Top of the World." And up there you can see the information center and some of the old tree slices up there and the core drillings. And it tells you how many thousands of years ago all this goes back. And the trees that were alive when Adam was on this earth and Noah are there. And even back into eternity past. You see, the earth was not created in time and space. It was created in eternity past. I know a lot of people say that the earth is only 6,000 years old, but they don't know Hebrew. The Hebrew tells you different. In the beginning, when the earth was created, that was in eternity past. Genesis 1 and 1. Genesis 1 and 2 tells you that in eternity past something took place. 7,271 feet there at Westgard Pass, by the way. And the earth and all this was created in eternity past, not in time. And the rest of the chapter of the book of Genesis tells you how God reconstructed and restored the earth. He's going to put man on it. A lot of the trees and plants in eternity past came all the way through, and some of them life, I guess. Maybe cockroaches went all the way back there. Some other things. The dinosaurs, etc. Ancient Bristol and Pine Forest, University of California Research Station. Right up that road right there. Big Pine, 13 miles, and it's a crooked 13 miles, I'll tell you that much. Now we're up on this plateau. Now Harry's band just left them alone again up here. Maybe ambushed them a little bit, but he's going to finish the job up here in just a little way. And what was left, I think 9 people made it to independence. The rest were killed for their depredations that they had done here. Maybe not them, but others like them. Harry thought that he was going to teach them a lesson by these battles, and they would leave their country alone and leave them alone. They didn't mind if they come through here, but just leave the livestock alone. This is our food. But they didn't. Now you can see the Sierra Mountains in the background again too. Beautiful mountains. 8% for 9 miles downgrade. By the way, you're looking out there, you're seeing pinyon pines, you're seeing junipers. Different kinds of vegetation and white sage. White sage everywhere. Indian tea. which the Mormons used. Rabbit brush. Cedar trees. We went by Cedar Flats up there a while ago. Now we're getting into these real narrow canyons now. There were snipers on top of these hills here all along. There's also a one-way road here too. I hope I don't meet one of them trucks on that, because it's down here pretty soon. But around here where the narrows are, it's where Harry completely finished off all but 9 people. Maybe he left the 9 to tell the rest of them to leave them alone. We don't know. They could have killed them all. They took all our guns, some of the horses. They were not killed and wounded. Now we're getting ready to go through the spooky part. There was a lot of dead men here one time. All along, a lot of dead men. These truck drivers drive really fast through here, as you saw. You can see cedar trees and juniper trees and pine trees of all sorts here. There's the Indian tea and some more here and there. Different kinds of wildflowers. We're coming up to the Narrows. And I hope we don't meet anybody. We already saw a tanker truck and a hay truck. Hopefully we won't meet anybody. I have never met anybody here exactly. They'll tell you to blow your horn. There used to be a sign to tell you that. Now this is where all the men were killed. All the rest of them, except for the 9. So that went to the Canyon of Death. Now what was crippling away here would make it to Fort Independence and tell the tale. Weren't very many. I imagine they were skedaddling down this mountain for their lives, leaving everything behind and all the wounded. And Harry ended up with a lot of Springfield 73s, rifles and carbines. They showed up later in Fish Lake Valley. Some of the McNetts, the Indians that worked for them, had a cache of those rifles for many years. I knew one of them where it ended up. It ended up at Herschel with Herschel Hansen. Reuben McNett ended up with it, and somehow he got it from Reuben McNett. It was a single-shot Springfield trapdoor. It was a rifle that had been cut down into a carbine. They sent them back to Springfield Armory, and they didn't have enough carbines that they carried on horseback. And they had saddle rings on them. Anyway, I have one of those also, not from the fight here, but I've got one from, it was actually made in 1873, and it was sent back to the Army in 1882 or 1883, somewhere around there. And it had a different barrel put on it, because they didn't have enough carbines. The carbines are worth a lot of money today to collectors. I hope I'm keeping you entertained while you watch this mountain. Hope you don't get car sick. When Thomas was little, every time he came over these mountains, he'd get car sick. And I'd stop down here at this watering hole, the old stagecoach stop. We'll be coming up to that in a little while. A real cool water there, cold water coming out of there. A little bit of arsenic in it. Anyway, I drank out of that water. I washed Thomas's face and Dakota's face many times. And I washed my face there many, many times and drank that cold water. Look at those mountains. There's a Toyota pickup with a pop-up camper. Toyota Tundra. Remember, I'm pulling a trailer behind me. You don't see it, but it's there. Look at those beautiful mountains. All different kinds of wildflowers and different elevations here. I saw some poppies there. Now this is the watering hole right here. This is the old toll station, and the watering hole, the old water trough, is still there, right there, and water is coming out of it. That'll be plenty of water this year. They even have some sumac trees here. Sumac trees. The Indians, not Indians, but the Chinese planted them wherever they went. And they must have been there doing mining, working for the miners or something up here, because they planted sumac trees. And there are several sumac trees in Bishop, California, and Big Pine, and etc. There are a few there. I'm somewhat allergic to them, so I do not have one planted in Fish Lake Valley, because they really grow. There's some white flowers. I can't remember. Marilyn knows the name of those. Knows the name of most of these. And up here on the side of the road there is a parasite. That orange looking stuff there on those bushes, that is a parasite. That parasite sticks to those bushes and sends out its tentacles and sucks the life out of them. I don't know what that thing's called, but that parasite, I looked it up one time. I think that automobiles and trucks and stuff carry that spore of that parasite. Like mistletoe, it sticks on the things and sucks the life out of it. Look at those beautiful mountains ahead. That's the Owens Valley down there. And here we got water coming across the road. The spring is running. More of that parasite on the side of the hill up there. I don't know why they don't go out there and dig those plants up and get rid of that parasite. A lot of wildflowers. Pretty sure that parasite is not native to here. A lot of it in here. It's along the edges of the roads, like it was transported here. Of course, with the strong winds up here, you can blow it off the road away, as you can see. Quite a steep decline here. Incline if you're going the other way. Lots of wildflowers this year. I'm sure Death Valley's got a lot of wildflowers in it, because there's got to have been plenty of water down there. There are some tall mountains surrounding Death Valley where streams could run down in there. People seem to like these road trips, especially if you can't go do them yourself. I'm doing this by necessity today because they're working on the other end of the highway, on Highway 6. They started rebuilding the road, and I'm sure I'm going to be stopped when I go back there and slowed down. They're probably going to chip seal the road or something, or doing something to it. It's basically the same thing with Fish Lake Valley. They started doing that today. Finally got it down in a little bit lower gear. Save on my brakes. This transmission has 8 speeds in it. It has 8 gears. Looking down on Owens Valley now, down through there are a lot of elk. And there are some ponds down here. The Owens River runs right down through there. I think you can see where the riverbed is, and there's a pretty big pond over there. And all down and through there are elk. And the elk that are up here actually were moved out up here by William Dow. The Dow Villa hotels and things. Up here he was catering to the movie stars. Anyway, he thought that this would be a good place for elk. They tried to put some of those elk up in Yosemite, but it's too high for them. And they brought them down here, and they just thrived. And they're still thriving. They are doing so well that they issue hunting permits on them occasionally. They came out of the Thule Elk Reserve out there by Tupman, near going on the way to Taft. All of the San Joaquin Valley was just absolutely inundated with elk and antelope. The whole valley had a tremendous amount. There was a very large lake called Thule Lake, which is coming back this year. They're very surprised that it came back. It's called the Ghost Lake. That lake was over 200 miles long. Well, they killed all of the elk, except for what was on there on that one little area in Miller and Lux, the Kern Land Company. And they said out there, if you see anybody carrying a rifle shooting elk, you shoot them. And so the only way in the world that we have any Thule elk left out of the San Joaquin Valley is because of the Kern Land Company and William Dow up here. a picture of William Dow when he released the first elk into this valley. They could have been here many years ago, but you know, all of the California grizzlies, which were the largest grizzly bear, they were equal to the Kodiak bear of Alaska, Kodiak Island. That was the only other big bear that was over 2,000 pounds. The last one they killed in California in Fresno in 1920 something was 2,400 pounds or something like it. It was a gigantic grizzly, this great big grizzly bears. They were the most fearsome grizzlies in the United States. There were grizzly bears all over, but these were so large. Now here's a road going to Death Valley here. Saline, Eureka, and Scotty's Castle. There's a lot of roads leading to Death Valley, out of Fish Lake Valley and Gilbert Pass and here. I hope you're enjoying these beautiful sights, all the creeks coming down out of these mountains. We're going to go over the Owens River pretty soon. Now right here, when I was very young, was the railroad. And right here, when they crossed the road here, of course it was a dirt road a long time ago, you had to stop for the train because they were loading cattle and produce out of here. Now right here, also, right over there to the left, is where the movie Maverick was done. And I was here when they were filming that movie Maverick, and you'll see them out here, Graham Greene and the star of the movie and James Garner all over there. Well, we were coming down here in Dakota and Thomas, and we had to stop and wait for them to shoot the movie. They wouldn't let us go down the road. They stopped us quite a little way up there. We saw all of the commotion going on down there with all the Indians on horses and everything. And but that's where it was shot, that scene. They're shooting that scene. Food for a lot of animals this year, I'll tell you. Probably wildfires later on when it dries out, if it ever does. It just doesn't seem like it wants to quit raining this year. We definitely need to rain in California and even up where we are. California likes to control their water, so they don't want to say there's the end of drought. There's flooding, not drought. Now we're going over another tributary of the LA Aqueduct. Big Pine. Bishop the other way. Now, if we had gone Highway 6, we'd have gone over Highway 6, come through down to Benton, California. We'd have gone to Hamel Valley, and then Chalifant Valley, and then into Bishop, California. We'd have gone by another little community, and then here we would be coming up to Big Pine. Baker Creek Road. In the old County Park campground. By the way, another thing. It looks like the Copper Top Barbecue is closed today, maybe. That's a real good barbecue there, by the way. By the way, a long time ago, now I'm an old man, so I can say that. When I was young, they said there were wolverines still in the White Mountain. Guess what? This year, they have discovered some of them. They had sighted one in Yosemite, the first one sighted in over 100 years. And they sighted some in the Inyo Mountains here, which were probably still hiding back in the White Mountains, going to the little town of Big Pine here. I get to see some elk out here. Here's the Paiute Reservation. We went by a sign there that said Saturday is the Sabbath. That's true. The Catholic Church changed the Sabbath to Sunday. Of course, God didn't do that. The Catholic Church did it. They did it twice. Constantine did it, but it never worked. And then later on, there was a letter dropped from heaven, so-called, and one of the holy sites in Israel, Jerusalem, and told them that God was going to kill all of them if they didn't start worshiping God on Sunday and change the Sabbath to Saturday to Sunday. Of course, that was a bogus letter. But anyway, there's when people started calling Sunday the Sabbath. The Sabbath is still Saturday. God never did change it. I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist either. The law was done away with. We're going through elk country here. A lot of elk. I put in for an elk tag. I don't think I'll get it, but maybe. Who knows? Down here though also that there's a lot of elk around that lake. Most of the time I've seen them out here in these fields munching on this alfalfa, laying underneath the sprinklers. Didn't finish 24 miles and Long Pine is 40. By the way, Long Pine is where they did so many movies. You go out there in the Alabama hills and around there, there is a movie museum up there. A lot of cattle out here. There's some longhorns. Right here, there's a lot of Black Angus. But there's some longhorn cattle off and on down through here. Longhorn with the wild cattle. Here every now and then, moving me around on the road. All types of streams, and up here just full of trout. Camping spots, and we're coming up to the sign that has an elk on it. next 14 miles, a lot of elk, so watch out for them. They might decide to go across the road in front of you. Some of the prettiest country in the world here. Out here in these fields, many times you see a lot of elk. Big herds of them sometimes. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100, 200 herd. Elk in a herd sometimes. According to what time of year. They stand out there belly deep in that grass. I've seen them all along here. The next place is usually where they congregate quite a little bit, just on the other side of this creek, and that creek runs down into a lake down there. And that's a viewing point here because there's a lot of elk out here a lot of times. That's what that turnout there is for. You can always tell the elk from the cattle. The elk are twice as tall. They got horns 60 feet in the air off their heads. When they have horns, they lose their horns up here also. They're bringing it back now. They're beginning to grow. So over there to the left is where the lake is. I don't know if you can see it or not. Sized lake out there. This was all wonderful farmland before LA Water Power came up here and said that they were going to expand into ranching, and what they were wanting to do is get all the water rights and then build an aqueduct, or 2 aqueducts actually, and send all the water to Southern California. Well, they did it. And they had rainforest up here over that. A long time ago, Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, said, "Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting." And I can guarantee you they did a lot of fighting over the water up here. Still on the trail of the soldiers, 9 soldiers that were left. And they're coming all the way down the road here. They're still riding, they're still walking, whatever they had to do, however long it took them to get off the Westgard Pass down here. And they're coming down these trails. Now where they're going to go is where we're going right now. We're going to go into Independence, and there's Fort Independence down there, and they went to Fort Independence. Suffering from wounds and depredation of all sorts there, probably half starving, trying to escape with the skin by the skin of their teeth for their lives. I see they had a long way to travel before they get to a fort. Independence, where we're gonna, I have to stop down there for gasoline. problems. Like somebody's been up here picking up a lot of trash. Elk signs out. Wherever there are alfalfa fields, these elk like to gather around there. Now there's a lot of food out there of all sorts this year. That white sage is really good. If you eat a cow that was steer that was fattened on white sage, and they ate something else that was fattened on carrots or rotten onions or whatever else they do in the feedlots, it sure makes a lot of difference. Caboose Creek Campground up there, Aberdeen Station. It's going to try to rain again this afternoon. It's been doing that a lot up here. These lava flows here, they're going across the road. The road's actually going through them. They've deteriorated a lot in the last 70 years I've been coming up through here. That ground is very fertile ground. When it was still farmland up here, there was a lot of produce going out of this valley. There was a community up here that they wanted to start for Quakers. And they're going to have big farmland in here, which they did. They had big apple orchards and all kinds of stuff. There's good old creek in Aberdeen there. That used to be a pretty good little restaurant at one time. I've taken Marilyn there a couple of times. Another campground down here. Creeks coming down all over. You can stop on the side of the road here. There are creeks going underneath the highway. Get out there and you can get a fishing pole and catch fish. You don't have to go up to the campground. You can do it right out in here where it's flowing down. There are some longhorn cattle in here, and as you get closer to Lone Pine, there out there in the middle, you can see that parasite on the sagebrush. We stopped here and had a picnic a long time ago when Dakota was little, and she's 30 years old now. And I got my fishing pole out and I caught a bunch of fish down here. We cooked them and ate them. Right there at this little campground. This rest area. Fish hatchery. The big fish hatchery was in Independence up here, but the old fish hatchery is closed down for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's closed down. another creek coming down out of the mountains. That's where Independence is. And these poor soldiers now, they're crippling along this highway all the way down. Of course, it was trails back then. And they're aiming to Fort Independence, which is just a few miles on up here. That was the end of the journey. I don't know how many lived out of that, but there were 9 that got down here alive. Out of 224. A lot of the soldiers' bodies rotted out there in the desert up there, and their bones were bleached. Simply because the commanders wouldn't listen. It ended up costing Harry everything, and his people everything. They were deported from here. They captured most of them and deported them down to Porterville, California, and Fort Tejon up above Bakersfield in Lebec. And the Tule Indian Reservation up there. They were taken into those areas, and they didn't understand why the Indians go down there, and they wouldn't go out there and go hunt, they wouldn't go fishing or anything. And they were starving, you know, I mean, they were starving. They moved them to this place, and they said, well, this is not our land. They said, well, what difference does it matter? And he said, our people made a treaty many years ago with these people, and we said they would not hunt in their land, we would not fish in their land, we would not take anything from their land. Well, that's a long time ago. And they said, we swore by God. God's still there. We cannot do this. They didn't understand that. Their God was so far removed from them that they didn't realize that the Indians' God was present to watch every move they made, and always to hold them to their word. That was the difference. Alexis Goody, I have an anvil from his old ranch out of Guayama Valley. He was the first Indian agent in California, and he lived among the Indians and lived like them, talked like them, went through all their celebrations with them, and he understood them. He tried to explain to the other Indian agents why that these Indians acted like they did. They said they were different. You think things every day is a new world, but to them it's the same old world. Same world that they swore with their grandfathers and great-grandfathers that they would respect the other people. He said, their God's still here. Every generation in white society, it's a different generation. It's a whole different story. But to the Indians, it wasn't. History was all now. The treaties were all now. When the white man broke treaties with the Indians, they said they must be somebody without a God. How can a man swear by God and then ignore what they did? You know, God's going to get to you. He's going to get you. And we're almost to Fort Independence here. That's it over to the left. All the trees are down there. That's where that body of soldiers were headed. 224 of them. Only 9 of them got here. The Indian reservation up here, Paiute Reservation. They've got a gas station on where you can buy gas a little bit cheaper than you can buy it someplace else. They sell marijuana and they sell tobacco and all kinds of stuff there. It's a wonder they haven't done like the Apache and start picking up peyote beans again and making tea out of that and having hallucinations like LSD. peyote buttons will do that. In the movie Young Guns, it had somewhat of a explanation of that, but part of that movie was true and part of it wasn't. The guy in there called Shabazz, his real name wasn't Shabazz. He was Indian, but he was Chickasaw Indian. His name was Frederick Tecumseh Waite, and he was partners with John Tunstall. And his partnership with John Tunstall, they were going to bring cattle all the way from Pauls Valley, Oklahoma out there, and they were going to set Billy the Kid up and anybody else that had land out there to raise cattle, and they were going to be partners with them. They were going to supply the cattle, and then they would get a certain percentage off of it. Well, the one playing Shabazz was Lou Diamond Phillips. This is Phillips like my name, Cherokee Indian. And he's supposed to introduce this peyote to him. But they didn't do that. The Comanche got into peyote after Bonaparte. But peyote was an Apache ceremonial thing. The Apaches the only ones that only Indians that drink alcohol. They had Tiswan. And they had this peyote button that they'd make tea out of and hallucinate and have these dreams and visions. The Lakota people said that was cheap religion. You don't need whiskey or peyote buttons to have a vision with God. It takes concentration. Go into a vision quest. Over here at Fort Independence, this is where the 9 soldiers made it. Now I'm going to pull in here and get some gasoline. Thank you for following along. God bless you. Here we are at Fort Independence. The old fort is over there to the left-hand side, down that road. That's where those people came all the way. Now the old Mount Whitney fish hatchery is here. I don't think there are any fish left there. There's ducks and stuff. Oh, big breeder trout up here were as big as salmon. Are just abandoned. I don't know what happened there. The people didn't want to abandon it. They were going to tear it down. It looked like a little alpine village. Now this is the Inyo County seat here. Court that time, and the guy gave me a ticket for driving too much in California. I'll see you here once a month going down the road. You need a license in California on your car. I said, I don't live in California, I live in Nevada. Well, you need one anyway. Gave me a ticket. I went down there and told the judge, and he had been doing that to a lot of people who live in Fish Lake Valley anyway. They were happy when I boy almost got thrown in jail and the highway patrol officer did. Tell him quit giving these people tickets. I had a letter from the sheriff of Esmeralda County at Benson asking them to be good neighbors. Practice a good neighbor policy. to Independence. By the way, these big trees here, these are giant sequoias. They planted them here. Teddy Roosevelt planted some in his time. Department of Water and Power, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, that's the tree he planted died. Cut the water off from it. By the Masonic Lodge. There's the hotel. I think that was one of the hotels Dow built also. One that brought the elk into Williams Valley. American Legion building. That used to be Mather Sunland Station there. I used to send the gasoline up to them when I worked for Sunland Refinery. Next town is Lone Pine. I didn't happen to get to Bakersfield so early today. Go up in the Alabama hills a little bit. Couldn't do very much with this trailer behind me, but I'll show you where it was. Where it is. The cattle in here, there's a lot of mules up here. But the cattle in here they got a lot of longhorns in there with them. Back in these cattle up here because they calve without help. Nobody has to be there to pull them. They spent 150 years breeding the longhorn out of the cattle. Now they're putting them back in because they see that it was really okay. That's why they multiply. Chisholm Trail and all of that. They were taking wild cattle. They're catching wild cattle. They didn't raise them. They caught them. They take them to the stockyards, fatten them up. They didn't have a dime in them, except what it took to transport them. Might be some elk here, I don't know. Elk here now and then. the Japanese internment camp was in Manzanar. And this was one of the areas here that was going to be a Quaker farm area until LA Water and Power bought up all the water rights. During World War II, they moved the Japanese all over and put them into the internment camp here. Fishing club here where some of the prisoners would escape. And go fishing and come back home. Up here I was also ahead of us at the Alabama gates. There's a reservoir back in there. A major part of this Owens River goes into the LA Water Power Aqueduct. The citizens got so upset up here that they went up there and blew the dam up. And the water went back into Owens Lake. The lake was drying up. 2% of all the dust pollution in California and Nevada comes from them drying this lake up. There's a lot of onions out of Bakersfield area. San Joaquin Valley. Elk signs up. Be elk wandering across the road at any time. Usually at night though. Water and Power sent representatives up here under false pretenses to buy land up here. They were going to invest in cattle and farming up here supposedly. And they bought the ranches up and they shut the ranches down, slaughtered off all the cattle and drilling wells and putting water in the LA aqueduct. I think it was 1913. 14, somewhere there when they opened up the aqueduct into Los Angeles. Maryland's father, Victor Larson, rode his bicycle there and watched them open the gates to the aqueduct. It's the Alabama Gate Spillway. That's where they blew up the spillway there and the dam and water went back in the lake. Owens Lake was already all the way here originally. It was all the way back here and then down all the way through Lone Pine and down below Lone Pine into Lancia, below Lancia. It was 50 miles long or so originally. There's some water in the lake this year. When I went over Cottonwood Creek the last time, Cottonwood Creek was running into Owens Lake. The aqueduct, which we see up here to our right, that's an aqueduct up there. And then we have another one down to our left, the old Owens River. It was damaged and the water went back into Owens Lake for a while. The aqueduct overflowed and washed out. Now we're coming into Lone Pine. The movie capital of this high country. Randolph Scott, John Wayne, Clark Gable, many of the stars up here. Did many movies up here. Paladin. Up here, the guy that worked with them was Russ Spadenauer, which was one of my customers. Over 100 wagons and cattle and horses and everything for the movie industry. And the ranch up here, a lot of the ranches sold now. A lot of the movie backdrops are destroyed there on the ranch, but there's still areas up there in the Alabama hills where they'll show you where this movie was made and where Audie Murphy made this movie, where John Wayne made this one, Randolph Scott, Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, Andy Devine, Matty Arbuckle. To the graveyard here where there's some pioneer graves, and also where Lake Diaz, there was a great big earthquake in the 1870s here and it created the lake. It killed a lot of people. And up there on the right, if you see that flag flying up there, that's where there's a common grave up there for 178 people. And there it tells you about it. Graveside, 1872 earthquake victims. And Diaz Lake was created in that. Here we're going into Lone Pine, the movie capital of the high country. We got a lot of movies up here. I saw them doing a lot of movies up here. Joel McRae had a ranch, bought a ranch in Fish Lake Valley for his double. He spent time up there in Fish Lake Valley. He was a real cowboy. World champion calf roper, actually. If you ever saw him get off a horse, he got off a horse just walking. Horse could slide to a stop and he'd just get off walking because he was used to getting off a horse at a full run and roping the calf and tying it up. That's where Grant Story, that was a great investor in Ruger Firearms and Artificial Hearts and everything. Right up the street here is where he lived. He was a ham operator. And I knew him and talked to him back in those days. He was a multi-millionaire, and all of his fortune is gone now, pretty much. Buick Riviera. There's the Indian Trading Post, Totem Cafe. I used to sell a lot of my Indian artwork there. And in there was a restaurant, and Gary Cooper, many of the stars' signatures are all over there. Randolph Scott, Andy Devine, Clark Gable, many of the lady stars. I had a pistol here that Gary Cooper gave to Audie Murphy, Colt Single Action Army, and I loaned it to that museum for a year, and I got to go out on the trip with him, and I really enjoyed that. Now we're going by the Spainhour Ranch, actually. From here on out, there's an anchor called the Anchor Ranch or the Spainhour Ranch. One time they did a movie here with that anchor sign. It was that Jewish actor, I can't think of his name right now. He always played a bad guy. And he was a crippled man in this movie. And anyway, this was we'll be going by there. There's where they make the High Sierra peppers there, the cilantro peppers. Here's the Anchor Ranch. Going by it right now. The old sign out in front of it is kind of getting dilapidated. It doesn't have paint on it or anything, but you can see it up there. Right now, it's got an anchor up there. You should see it right there. No paint on it, but there it is. If you watch that movie, The Brave Men or something like that, think of that Jewish actor's name. Always played a bad guy and a gangster usually. He was a very philanthropist and very nice person outside of his acting persona. We're going to come up here to Diaz Lake pretty soon. There we go, another road going to Death Valley, and then we'll have another one down Ballancha going also. Keeler is 13 miles. That's with a narrow gauge road. That was a railroad town at one time. Death Valley, 104 miles that way. There's the Mount Whitney Research Center there. Information Center. Ballancha, 21 miles. Cozo Junction, 38. Los Angeles, 209. Now we have that beautiful Mount Whitney Golf Course. Right up here to the right is the lake that was created when they had their earthquake. When we top this hill up here, you'll be able to see Owens Lake. Diaz Lake right now. There's a lake over there. There's a lot of fish in the lake. horses and mules down there to the right. You have to realize this is the mule capital of the world up here, supposedly. Have mule days. Bishop. Down here to the left is where Grant Story had a artificial heart factory. There's Owens Lake. You have to realize it went way up there. Thing was completely full. They had steamboats going across that lake carrying gold and silver. Some Cerro Gordo mine. They stacked silver bars like firewood. You can see there's some water in that lake, but there's still a whole lot of it in that alkali dust out there.